Thousands of Colombians took to the streets to protest against the government's social and economic policies. The government of Russia officially denounced sanctions imposed by the US against its lead Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline project. Rescues at sea and boats from Africa to Spain's Canary Islands have strained emergency services. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. Thousands of Colombians took to the streets on Wednesday to protest against the government's social and economic policies. The protests were marked by the arrival of the Minga indigenous movement in the country's capital. However, other union members and people from different sectors, such as teachers, students, and workers, joined the march in Medellín, Cali, Barranquilla, and Bucaramanga. Among the demands and the Colombian people were the guaranteed income of those who lost their jobs because of the coronavirus, more funding for health and education, as well as government action to stop gender-based violence.
I would like to tell President Ivan Duque today that it's through dialogue with people that alternative for this country can be found, that their indifference hurt us, that a violent dialogue is a form of violence against indigenous people.
Our call as we you people and as one of the most numerous people in the whole country is for the President Duque to listen to our demands, to listen to our supplications. In the Guajira department, thousands of children have died of malnutrition, thousands of children have died of thirst.
On Wednesday, Uruguay's Broad Front coalition decided to support the campaign to collect signatures calling for a referendum to be held on the urgent consideration law approved by the right-wing government of President Luis Lacalle Pou on July. The referendum is an initiative promoted by National Trade Union Center, the Inter-Union Plenary of Workers, National Convention of Workers, together with social movements. Parliamentarians for the Broad Front coalition voted in favor of the initiative, which requires 7,000 signatures in order to promote the referendum on the law before June next year. Several social, union and political sectors have condemned the approval of the law, stressing its deeply anti-democratic in form and substance, and promotes privatization of the public sector, including of the education, health and housing sectors, as well as neoliberal reforms that will impact employment, the security and the economic.
The Broad Front said, before the law was approved, that the law was unpopular, unjust, unjust. It stated that some articles were unconstitutional, which were later withdrawn. Therefore, it seems to me that the resolution adopted by the plenary to accompany the initiative of the Popular Association is a very good thing. We are totally in agreement with it. Even though the instrumental part is missing, it is necessary to arrange it. How many articles are they targeting, or whether we are against the entire law? I believe that option is out of the question. We have to choose the articles that the population, the ordinary common people, understand, to affect them more directly, and then the mechanism in which I consider there is also a tendency, and we are in favor of the alone mechanism of collecting signatures, so that in 1 year's time, a referendum can be held, but there are those who legitimately think that it could be the short mechanism. These are the two parts of the discussion that are mostly about instrumental issues, but a popular initiative to mobilize against the law is an objectively correct thing on our part.
This Wednesday, Mexico's Deputy Foreign Secretary, Maximiliano Cortázar, denounced the interference of the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Luis Almagro, in the internal affairs of Latin American nations in reference to the recent elections held in Bolivia.
My country denounces the Secretary General's eagerness to intervene in the internal affairs of our states and to harm our democracies. What happened with the OAS in Bolivia must never be repeated. The Bolivian people have dealt you a historic lesson that we hope you will learn from. As long as you continue to lead the organization, the shadow of what happened in Bolivia will always be present. You have discredited the missions and electoral observations, and have led the organization to clash with the democratic reality that we experience in the region today.
In Brazil, opposition party leaders in the Chamber of Deputies have condemned President Jair Bolsonaro's statements against the possible use of a Chinese COVID-19 vaccine in the country. After a meeting with Brazilian governors, Health Minister Eduardo Pazuello signed an agreement for the country to acquire 46 million doses of a vaccine produced by the Chinese biopharmaceutical company Sinovac, named CoronaVac. However, this Wednesday, President Jair Bolsonaro ordered the cancellation of the agreement. In response, Congress members announced that they will present a complaint against the president to the Supreme Court for his attacks on means to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus. And on Wednesday, the director of the Pan American Health Organization stressed that the misinformation threatens the response to the COVID-19 pandemic in the Americas, in particular with regard to the vaccine against the virus.
Insidious rumors and conspiracy theories can disrupt vaccination efforts and imperil our COVID-19 response, costing lives. While the world urgently awaits a breakthrough, it is important to highlight that PAHO will only support the distribution of a vaccine that has proven to be safe and effective in clinical trials, reviewed by national regulatory authorities, and recommended by the World Health Organizations.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Russia officially denounced on Wednesday the sanctions imposed by the United States against its lead Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline project. According to the Kremlin press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, further sanctions damaged the bilateral relationships between Moscow and Washington. This Tuesday, the government of the United States imposed new sanctions against the Nord Stream 2, targeting business that provides services or funds to upgrade or install equipment on ships that are being used to lay the pipeline. Russia has two projects to send natural gas to Europe, namely the Nord Stream 2, which will send Russian natural gas to Germany, and the Turk Stream 2 pipeline, which will supply Western Europe with energy. However, the government of the United States has repeatedly tried to hinder the project. Speaking at a meeting with members of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs on Wednesday, President Vladimir Putin ruled out the reimposition of a nationwide lockdown to curb the surge in COVID-19 cases across the country.
Despite the unfortunate surge in the numbers of people infected with this virus, you're right, our medics learned to fight it. We have now drugs and medicaments, and vaccine is about to appear. The general plan of the fight against the virus is obviously to continue testing, reinforce the healthcare system and individual protective gear, to respect the restrictive measures proposed by specialists and health officials, and to vaccinate. We have discussed with colleagues this morning that, unfortunately, the death toll due to COVID has risen slightly in comparison with spring. However, the specialist says that the reason is also that the causes of deaths are better diagnosed now. As for the overall death toll, it has fallen by half in comparison with spring. It's the main marker of the overall health care system state.
This Wednesday, former President of the United States, Barack Obama, delivered his first in-person campaign speech to support Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden in the city of Philadelphia, where he called on voters to turn out risk on the re-election of President Donald Trump. With less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day, former President Obama held a drive-in car rally in South Philadelphia, where he condemned President Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic and his response to the protests protest against systemic racism and police brutality across the country. He also attended a small community roundtable encouraging young people to find the time to vote. Obama's visit to Philadelphia underscores the significance of the state of Pennsylvania in the presidential race, as it is the swing state that presidential candidate Biden himself has visited the most during the campaign season. According to a USA Today Suffolk University poll released Wednesday, Biden leads President Trump by 7 points in Pennsylvania. Obama delivered presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's closing argument in the same city 4 years ago, the night before the election day.
The White House, for Joe Biden, we can't be complacent. I don't care about the polls. There were a whole bunch of polls last time. Didn't work out because a whole bunch of folks stayed at home and got lazy and complacent. Not this time, not in this election. I get that this president wants full credit for the economy he inherited and zero blame for the pandemic that he ignored. But you know what? The job doesn't work that way. Tweeting at the television doesn't fix things. Making stuff up doesn't make people's lives better.
European Union officials have warned of a dim economic outlook as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, noting that the downturn for 2020 will be twice as bad as the 2009 global financial crisis.
Well, thank you, Madam President. The last forecast released a few hours ago by IMF states that the negative growth for the euro area will be in 2020 of minus 8.3. Just to compare, we had a negative growth of minus 4.1 in 2009. So during the financial crisis, it was less than half the crisis that we could have according to this forecast in 2020.
On Wednesday, China denounced Sweden's decision to ban Chinese telecom groups Huawei and ZTE from its 5G networks.
China is strongly dissatisfied with Sweden's decision. Over the years, Chinese companies such as Huawei and ZTE have strictly abided by local laws, actively promoted China-Sweden ICT cooperation, and made positive contributions to Sweden's infrastructure construction. The Chinese market is also open to European companies, including those from Sweden. Without any evidence, Sweden used national security as an excuse to groundlessly discredit Chinese companies, to blatantly suppress Chinese telecom companies, and to politicize normal economic cooperation. This practice runs counter to the principles of free, open, impartial, fair, and non-discriminatory market economy pursued by Sweden, as well as international economic and trade rules.
Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said Wednesday Japan opposes escalating tensions in the South China Sea during a press conference held on his trip to Indonesia and Vietnam.
Regarding the issues surrounding the South China Sea, I would like to stress the importance of all relevant parties not to resort to force or coercion, but to solve their disputes by working towards a peaceful resolution based on international law.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Rescues at sea boats from Africa on Spain's Canary Islands have strained emergency services and left hundreds of migrants and asylum seekers stuck for days in a makeshift harbor camp. Over 1,000 people, including women, at least 3 toddlers, were up Wednesday in a dozen emergency tents set up by the Red Cross on the Gran Canaria Islands Arguineum dock, where they joined by some of the 300 people rescued in the early hours of the day. The condition of the migrants is redoubling criticism from human rights organizations that see little progress in the government's handling of the emergency.
Shameful camp is not dismantled. We will file a complaint to the court of San Bartolomé de Tirajana because we cannot continue to tolerate the violation of human rights of migrants who arrive in Europe.
Spain hit 1 million COVID-19 cases this Wednesday, becoming the first European Union nation to surpass the mark. The country recorded 16,973 confirmed cases of COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. The health ministry announced, taking the total to 1,005,295 since its first case was diagnosed on January 31st on the remote island of La Gomera in Canary Islands. Of these numbers, over 34,000 people have died after 156 more deaths were recorded in the previous 24 hours. And the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on Nigerian authorities to prevent further acts of violence between police forces and peaceful demonstrators following deadly incidents on Tuesday night, as Nigerians continue to protest police brutality.
So it's time for all countries to understand, and I hope Nigeria will be able to do so, that police brutality needs to stop. And those that are responsible for acts of such dramatic violence are made accountable. And this is essential everywhere. And I trust President Buhari that he will be able to bring things into a normal way to respect the right of assembly of people.
And the governor of the Nigerian state of Lagos announced on Wednesday that he has ordered an investigation into the shooting of protesters on Tuesday night, when shots were fired into a crowd of demonstrators singing the country's national anthem at the Lekki Toll Square in the West African country's sprawling commercial capital.
It is imperative to explain that no sitting governor controls the rules of engagement of the military. I have nonetheless instructed an investigation into the ordered and the adopted rules of engagement employed by the officers and men of the Nigerian army that were deployed to the Lekki toll gate last night.
Residents in Nigeria's largest city, Lagos, have reacted to the deadly incidents on Tuesday night when police forces moved to crack down on demonstrators, killing at least 12 people.
On the day one, nobody is holding a stick, neither a gun, nothing. All what we are holding is a flag. Apart from the flag, nothing much, nothing. So all what we are saying is peace, 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 peace. But the soldiers refuse. Before you know it, they off the camera. After offing the camera, the next thing they off the light and begins shooting spreadingly.
It was brutal. It's incomparable. It's beyond my experience. I've never experienced this in Nigeria before, but it is. No one can deny that governor is not knowing about this. Because why did they off the lights and killing people?
Now they arrived around 7 when everywhere is dark, so that nobody will know what they're about to do. And we don't have in mind they're about to kill, destroy people, because we've been here for like 2 weeks. So when I'm about to leave, they came and they start shooting up.
Guinean authorities have confirmed the death of 9 people as a result of a violent unrest following Sunday's pre-election elections.
4 bodies in Conakry. 4 bodies of gunshot victims were deposited in the morgues of the Donka and Ignace Death hospitals. 1 death from stab wound. 2 others from 12-gauge firearms were registered in Kizudougou. There have just been told that in Kojas, a citizen of the locality has been shot with a 12-caliber gun. A policeman was lynched to death in Bambeto, and another stabbed to death at the cement factory. Fortunately, his life is not in danger, and several other law enforcement officers were injured. I must point out that the officers, especially the 2 who were seriously injured, and the other who died were completely devoid of lethal weapons. With regard to the home of Mr. Chelu Delaine Diallo, it is for security reasons on both sides that a system has been put in place. More information will be given in the following events. I do not wish to dwell on this part because the situation is sufficiently tense not to add information that could exacerbate tensions. I must say that there are other acts that are currently being carried out on the national territory that we are voluntarily holding back precisely because of our responsibility not to stir up violence, particularly communal violence.
This Wednesday, United Nations officials informed that Libyan military delegations from the opposing sides in the conflict have agreed to undertake several measures, including the opening of land routes connecting all regions and cities of the country, as well as the maintenance of the current state of calm on the front lines.
The 5+5 have also agreed to the opening of air routes throughout Libya, and especially flights to Sebha, which is the administrative capital of the southern region. So in light of this emerging hope and these positive developments, I reiterate the call made by the Secretary General on the 23rd of March for a global ceasefire, and I urge the two parties negotiating here in Geneva to solve all outstanding issues and forge a lasting ceasefire agreement. Thank you.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.